The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acomb. We are broadcasting from the Hesselson studio. And in that studio this morning, candidate for Corningtown Justice, Randy Dye. Thanks so much for being on the program.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
We got a lot to cover. And I know I always kind of do this disclaimer. It's a little weird when it's judicial candidates because, you know, we have to keep it kind of pared down. I can't ask very specific. But if we could start with your background.
Well, I grew up here in the city, over on the north side. Wonderful neighborhood, you know. Everybody has a wonderful neighborhood, but
when,
you know,
especially growing up, right?
Yeah, I grew up in a time when you knew it was time to come home when the street lights came on.
Right.
You know, you heard your mother yelling for dinner. You're outside all the time playing baseball, football with your friends. I mean, the city is a wonderful place. And from there, went to college at Corning, Rochester, became a police officer in, I believe, '81. Worked the town of Irwin, worked village of Addison, worked for village of Painted Post, and finally ended up here back where I originally wanted to be was Corning. That's, you know, it sounds strange, but I always wanted to be a Corning police officer. I grew up here. This was my home.
Sure.
Spent 17 years, I believe, with Corning PD. Retired in 2005, and then spent another couple of years on the desk. After that, went on to do some work doing some tracing down tax evasion, things like
Sure.
that. Then went to work with a private investigation company. And now I'm just fully retired, you know.
So you said, I'm retired now, let me get another job.
Yeah, well, you know, the thing is I'm a big outdoors guy. You know, I love the outdoors. I grew up, my summers were spent on my cousin's dairy farm.
Okay.
So I just, you know, the outdoors is just something that I love. So I'm a big hunter, I'm a big fisherman, you know, anything outdoors. So I've got the time on my hands. You know, I had a bunch of other things going on after I retired. I was approached a couple of times about running for judge, but I was like, I can't give my time that I believe it needed to it. And now I can. I believe I can do it.
And you mentioned that. For those that aren't aware, what does the job itself look like? What does it entail?
Well, with the town of Corning, it's a part-time position.
Okay.
They have court, I believe the judge, there's two judges, and every other week you have a night in which you have a court. And then during the day, I believe you have one DA's meeting.
Okay.
I don't know the schedule for sure. But, it's considered a part-time position. But, if I'm elected, I've got the time. I plan on dedicating everything to it.
They always say things like that are part-time until you get into them, right?
I mean, I imagine it's a lot of work. I mean, you've got to be able to, before you make a ruling, you better make sure that you know what you're talking about.
I would hope, right?
So there's a lot of research that's going to have to go into this.
What do you think are some of the major issues you could face?
Well, in a small town, and being just a justice court, the worst that you're going to see as far as crime is going to be a misdemeanor.
Sure.
You can't go, anything above that goes to the county. Mostly traffic, and then you've got small claims.
Of course, yeah.
And I think small claims would probably be the one that, as in being a police officer, I'm sure as being a judge, somebody's going to come out upset about whatever you're going to rule.
Yeah.
So that would be the tough one because you're dealing with your neighbors, but you've got to look at everything. The thing is, my opinion as far as being a judge, and from what I've seen, obviously working with them forever, you got to go into every case with a blank sheet.
Oh, yeah.
You've got to let the facts take you to where you need to go. You can't go in, a ticket isn't any different than a misdemeanor assault.
Right.
You got to let the facts take you where it takes you. And then when it comes time to rule, even though the misdemeanor assault might be 1 year max, that doesn't mean you give them 1 year max.
Right, it just depends.
You've got to look at the situation, and you got to look at the person. You got to judge their character. So I think
there's a lot of moving pieces when you really think about it.
And, that's one thing being in law enforcement. One thing you learn real quick is you can tell when someone's deceiving you.
Right.
The other thing is you become a very good judge of character. And, everybody makes mistakes.
Right.
Everybody. You've made mistakes.
Oh,
I've made mistakes. It doesn't mean that you have to have your life ruined because of that mistake. So you got to be able to take that into consideration when you're handing down the penalties. So
And I know, and we talk about this on the program a lot. Petition season that just kind of wrapped up. How'd everything go?
good. We're still doing an independent petition.
Okay. Are you really?
Yeah.
That's kind of a pain, isn't it?
Well, this is my first time running, so if you ask me, the whole thing's been a pain.
Well, yeah. Hey,
it's been like, holy crap!
Yeah.
I didn't realize all this was involved.
It's not.
It is kind of crazy, but it's a learning experience, and I've had wonderful support from the people that are working with me. So, yeah, it's going well. I mean, like I said, I'm new to this, so
Sure. Yeah. But that's
This
a
is all
good.
new.
To go in with a blank slate is not a bad thing. To go in with fresh eyes.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
listen, they opened up.
Very quickly.
So
Well, I think it's funny because people tell you how bad can the petition process be, but then when you knock on doors all Saturday afternoon and you walk away with 3 signatures,
Right.
it can be pretty bad.
and you better make sure your paperwork's correct.
Yeah, it
and
becomes
that's
a real
the
mess.
thing. You got to make sure what you're doing is correct. And like I said, I've got great support that's
Yeah.
helped me along with
yeah.
this, and
It's getting people to open the doors too. Let's face
yeah,
it.
I mean, and everybody has questions. And the thing is, like, some of the people will ask, I'm running for judge, but they have their opinions as far as,
Oh,
I mean, look what the state's doing to people, I have one woman asking me about, what are we going to do about our electric bills?
Right.
And I sympathize with her. The state is pricing people out of their homes.
100%.
So, yeah.
It's tough.
But you gotta be able to listen.
You do. What other than that specific issue? What have voters been saying when they find out that you're running for town justice?
So far, it's been very positive. I believe that they just look at my background in law enforcement, and I think they feel like it's a natural thing to move on. Most, I think if you look at most town judges, they've got a law enforcement background. Yeah, they've been very positive. Glad to see me doing it. So,
Yeah. And it's a quick turnaround because you've got the primary, correct?
yeah,
So, you're talking it's May, and we're talking June.
yeah. I think it's the 22nd is
Yeah.
the
I
date
think
for
so.
the.
But so that's a big day. The primary day is, so because people I found, they'll say, well, I'll worry about it in the general. Well, if you don't worry about it in the primary, there is no general,
And the thing is getting the vote out for the primary.
Yes.
Because a lot of people just don't worry about the primary.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
We had in Irwin, one go around, you're talking 30, 40 people showed up in the whole town of Irwin.
yeah.
It's kind of sad,
Yeah,
So speaking of that, how do you plan on campaigning here on out to get the vote out?
Obviously signs. We're going to have some flyers.
Right.
The standard thing.
Yeah.
This obviously is an
Sure.
appearance.
Sure.
To get the word out. Talk to people. That's the thing you got to do is you got to go out and talk to people. So.
And it is actually June 23rd. I think.
23rd,
Yeah,
okay.
June 23rd. I don't know if we said that, but I want to correct it because we're going to have a lot of candidates on.
June 22nd sticks in my mind because of 1972.
Oh, well, sure. Okay. Yeah, there you go.
So
so June 23rd. But before we go, how can people help your campaign? Or if you haven't had an opportunity to knock on their door yet, how can they find out more?
The easiest way is to reach out on my website or my Facebook page.
Yeah.
They can leave comments there, and I'll get back to them.
Otherwise, wait for the knock on the door.
Wait for the knock on the door. If you have the people that are helping me, if you want to get a hold of me, they'll get a hold of me.
Oh, sure.
I mean, I've talked to several people on the phone when I've had people at doors, so I'm available.
Yeah. Well, best of luck coming up on June
Well, thank you,
23rd, and hopefully we can talk again soon.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after that.